Hey guys, Tom Barton here for TomBartonSports.com. It's been a little while. I had a little voice problem, but I'm back. I'm ready to roll, and we're talking some baseball. Look, Carlos Correa goes to the New York Mets. Steve Cohen, Uncle Stevie, is spending like a drunken sailor. That might not necessarily be a compliment. We're going to get into all that. Please check me out at TomBartonSports.com, Tom Barton Sports. And please, if you like this channel, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button below. Well, let's get into it. Look, Steve Cohen went on an absolute spending spree. It's been a wild offseason in Major League Baseball. Aaron Judge resigns, of course, but all of the news really is coming down to the New York Mets and their crazy new owner who's spending like a drunken sailor. The problem is that, well, it's not bad for baseball, which a lot of people are saying, oh, is the spending bad for baseball? No, it's not bad for baseball, but it may not be the best thing for the New York Mets. And Met fans, they don't get it. Look, Met fans have always been, we'll say, an interesting bunch, right? I've lived in New York my whole life. Yankee fans don't care about the Mets. Mets fans have always been completely obsessed with the New York Yankees. Mets fans have been utterly just looking up to the New York Yankees and wanting to be them for the longest time. But that's okay. It is what it is. It happens in a lot of big cities when you have two big teams. But Met fans have always been a little delusional. Look, I hate to piss you off, Met fans, but that's just reality. There was a time when I was on New York radio where we'd get calls for about a year or two that Ray Ordonez was a better player than Derek Jeter, right? I mean, it's always the comparison. So it really shocks me when I hear year after year after year after year that Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher in baseball, and then Mets fans celebrated when he just left town. Well, I get it. There's injuries, there's things like that, but we have to be honest here. That right there can hurt you. This entire team was built on an idea of a great 1-2 punch in the pitching department. And if you ended the year and asked any Met fan, really, what was the reason why you guys didn't go on to win the World Series? The New York Mets would have said, and any intelligent Met fan would have said, hey, we need more hitting, right? And we need to stay healthy. Totally agree. Absolutely. Well, you took a 100-win team and Steve Cohen mixed it all up and changed everything. And I think it's a bad approach. Look, losing Jacob deGrom, not a lot that you could do about that. Look, big teams, big owners, they don't lose guys. So losing Jacob deGrom was a little shocking to Steve Cohen, especially when deGrom on his way out didn't say goodbye to the Met fans and basically twisted the knife by saying that the Rangers are committed to winning. Well, does that mean the Mets weren't committed to winning? I didn't take it as that blasphemous. But look, at the end of the day, Jacob deGrom, when he's healthy, is the best pitcher in baseball. They didn't want to commit 5 years to him. They didn't want to give him that money. And Met fans everywhere turned their back on deGrom, rightfully so, after he turned his back on the Mets. But look, they fixed the problem. They brought in Justin Verlander. No problems at all, except he's into his 40s. He's a year removed from Tommy John surgery, and nobody in the history of Tommy John surgery pitched as many innings as he did. And by the way, at the end of the year last year, he started to fade pretty badly. But no problems, no injuries. I don't mind that switch. Look, I think you do lose a lot on the upside there because, again, I don't expect Justin Verlander to last more than a year or two, but I've been wrong before. Verlander and deGrom, that's a wash, perfectly okay with that move. I think it's a move that Steve Cohen should be applauded for doing, absolutely. But let's not act like the 1-2 combination of 40-year-olds and Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander don't give you a little bit of nervous ticks there when you're going, hey, can they pitch 160 plus innings? Can they get me 30 starts a year? I'm not sure. But we move on and we go, what about the rest of the moves that they've made? Well, okay. They got rid of Chris Bassett. Why is Chris Bassett not on this team? They replaced Chris Bassett and Taijuan Walker. Chris Bassett and Taijuan Walker with their 3.49 ERA. Both of them had under a 3.5 ERA and 27 combined wins. Plus, oh, by the way, Bassett was an innings eater. So they replaced them with Senga, who nobody knows anything about, and Jose Quintana. Well, Jose Quintana is a guy that had 6 total wins in the last 3 years. He's a guy that year after year had about a 4.5 ERA, and he had a miraculous year last year. He did. He came back from it. Guy into his 30s has a career year after arm injuries, after being jettisoned to the bullpen, and you'd rather him than a Chris Bassett? You'd rather take a shot on an international foreign guy who, oh, by the way, 2 years ago missed a lot of time with an arm injury and had a bad year just a year before that. So he's an unknown commodity. And he's not like some 24-year-old Shohei Ohtani here, guys. Guys reaching 30 years old, massive arm problems. If you don't know about that pitching league, they pitch 2 ends of a doubleheader. There are absolutely no pinch counts at all to speak of. I would be massively concerned. Now, the bullpen, I like the fact that they brought on Ottavino. I think Brooks Raley is a good chance to roll the dice. David Robertson, another guy coming off injuries, had a pretty spark year. But I do think losing Trevor Williams could be a problem for them. And it's not necessarily his production, which was very good. It's the fact that Trevor Williams gave you 90 innings. I hear from Met fans, well, don't worry, David Peterson is going to jump right into that job. Or Tyler Maygill. You mean David Peterson, who's never really shown much that he can be that guy. Or Tyler Maygill, who, oh, by the way, is coming off of injuries of his own. Lots of question marks. Lots of question marks. So I was waiting for the big bat to be signed because, let's be honest, their pitching is worse than it was last year. Statistically, it just is. You can argue that maybe Quintana is going to be great. You can argue that Senga's maybe going to be great. The reality is losing Bassett and Walker did hurt, and the upside of DeGrom, okay, you negate that with Verlander, fine. You're a slight downgrade. You're a 101-win team. 101-win team, by the way, that didn't win the division, but you're a 101-win team. Okay, you could take a slight downturn. But don't sit here with the bravado if Steve Cohen doesn't, well, he's just going to throw money around. He lost Jacob deGrom. He lost Chris Bassett. He lost Taijuan Walker. He lost 3 starters from a team. And I know deGrom only made 11 starts, but he lost 3 starters from a team. If money was no object, these are the guys he should have bought. But I digress back into the hitting. Who was the big hitter? Well, Brandon Nimmo, who they bid against themselves and overbid for a guy. It's about a 15 home run, mediocre player. Not really an all-star type of player. Bid against yourselves and overpaid him. That might not turn out to be too good for you. But it was okay because the Mets had new young blood coming up. Francisco Alvarez was going to be the guy. Brett Baty was going to be the guy, and that's how they were going to fix their hitting. Well, that's all I heard when I continued to tell Met fans, guys, you guys need another bat. You have to bring another bat in. We need another bat. Maybe a J.D. Martinez. Okay. Instead of a Danny Vogelbach, J.D. Martinez might have been an upgrade. How about a Justin Turner? Oh, yeah, you still put Brett Baty at third base, but you could switch him in and out, give some time off for Pete Alonso. These guys were aging veterans, $10 million a year. It's nothing. I mean, that's Steve Cohen. He's got that in his ashtray in his car, right? I mean, that's really what I was looking at. But all Met fans kept saying was, don't worry about it. We have Baty and we have Alvarez. Baty and Alvarez. So what do the Mets do? They sign a catcher, meaning that Alvarez will now split time. And they signed the worst deal in professional sports today. Hey, guys, you have your new Bobby Bonilla contract on your hands, and that is Carlos Correa. This is not, I don't like the New York Mets. You could go back and look at the videos on here. I said when the New York Yankees were courting Carlos Correa last year, I didn't want Carlos Correa. I ran the San Francisco Giants down on my radio shows when they signed Carlos Correa. The reality is this, is Carlos Correa a good defensive player? And a lot of his metrics come from him being a good defensive player. I'm not trying to say that defense doesn't mean anything. But this man wants to be considered one of the best shortstops in baseball. He's never hit 300, never had 100 RBIs, never had 100 runs scored, never had 15 stolen bases, and never hit 300. Never hit 30 home runs. Okay? Carlos Correa is a very average player. He's not only an average player, he's got 8 years in the league. He's got 2 years where he stayed relatively healthy. 2. He's an often injured defensive shortstop that puts up, hey, look, playoff numbers. I'll give him his credit. He's also very famous for saying, well, he would rather win the World Baseball Classic than a World Series. Now he's got a World Series ring in his pocket. Think that winning is the most important thing to him? So Carlos Correa then gets signed by the San Francisco Giants. A ridiculous contract. Everybody was stumbling all over themselves. How can the 4th best free agent shortstop, and that's what he was, get this much money in this kind of situation? Well, San Francisco was desperate. They lost Aaron Judge. They sold their team on Aaron Judge. Well, they had to make a move. You had to make a move to sell tickets. It was a must-do. So they overpaid Carlos Correa. Instead of paying Dansby Swanson, by the way, the much better player, for 7 years, they gave him a ridiculous contract. Well, when the medicals come up, Carlos Correa's got problems. Man, this isn't, well, I found something random. No. Carlos Correa has problems. Again, he stayed healthy 2, and not even fully healthy, relatively healthy 2 of his 8 years in the league. So Carlos Correa has medical problems. The news comes out that Scott Boras spent 12 hours calling GMs across the league to try to get them to sign Carlos Correa. Nobody bit. Nobody. Nobody would sign an aging, I know he's 28, but his body's about a 40-year-old, to a 10, 11, 12-year contract for $300 million, where the guy is a barely all-star caliber. And then you got to Steve Cohen. And Steve Cohen, Mr. Bravado, Mr. Beat My Chest, Mr. I have more money than anybody, said to Scott Boras, sure, we'll take him. medical problems and all. The fact that we have a shortstop, oh, by the way, we're going to make him be a third baseman. So the major value of Carlos Correa by every baseball statistical measure comes from being a shortstop. He's moved to third base. Loses his value there. Steve Cohen was bidding against himself. The rumors have come out now, and it's been substantiated, that Scott Boras spent 12 hours on the phone with other owners and nobody wanted to pay up. So San Francisco found something in the medicals that alerted every other GM in the league. Uh-oh, you better watch out. This guy's injured. People go, well, of course he's injured. He's only been healthy 2 years out of the last 8. And he's about a 270 hitter. Hits about 20 home runs a year. Doesn't hit homer 100 RBIs. Not a 100-run guy. He's a solid player. Solid player. I'm not giving him 12 years. You want him to play until he's 40, already injured? Well, Steve Cohen said, no, I'm going to do it. In doing that, not only did he put Carlos Correa as the new face of the New York Mets, he moved his position, he took on an injured player, and he took away at-bats from Brett Baty. The guy that New York Mets fans told me for months was the next guy. And I thought he was. I think Brett Baty's a hell of a player. And I think that it was his opportunity to get a shot. Where's he going to play now? No shot for Brett Baty. He's not playing first, not playing third. I guess maybe DH. And then you have Daniel Vogelbach. Is that what we're doing here? So I'm not telling you that Steve Cohen spent money like a drunken sailor, just throwing it all around, and everything was terrible. I'm not going to say that. Justin Verlander was needed. That was a needed move. I kind of like some of the things that he did with the bullpen. It's gambles, sure, but he rolled the dice with the bullpen. I do think he overpaid for Brandon Nimmo. He certainly had a downgrade in starting pitching. That starting pitching going from Bassett and Walker to Senga and Quintana is a certain downgrade. Okay, getting a backup catcher, maybe he knows that Alvarez isn't ready. Okay, that's perfectly fine. But Carlos Correa, this set it all up. This was a drunken sailor moment. Steve Cohen did this when he was on an island somewhere. Maybe he did have a couple of margaritas to give $300+ million, 12-year contract to a guy that's injured, out of position, and mediocre stats anyway. New York Mets fans screamed and yelled for years that Jacob deGrom was the greatest pitcher in baseball. When he left, he wasn't that good anymore. Verlander was the guy, right? New York Mets fans screamed for a long time how they needed a bat. Well, you bring in Carlos Correa because New York Mets fans said, well, we need a bat. Is Carlos Correa's numbers going to be much better than Brett Baty's was supposed to be? I think Brett Baty could hit 270, 75 RBIs, 25 home runs or so, 25 home runs. It's about the same. And now you go look at also, by the way, they're going to have to re-sign Pete Alonso pretty soon. And you could say that look, money isn't an object. Well, it's not, but we've watched this where money was no object for Pete Angelos for a long time till his team didn't produce the results. Money was no object for Artie Moreno for a long time till his team didn't produce results. Not wishing this upon the Mets fans. And I think that the New York Mets are slightly better than they were. Maybe. Their pitching is worse. Their infield could be slightly better. I think that the New York Mets are still in a dead heat contest with Atlanta and Philly for the division. I think that the New York Mets are not the World Series favorites. So if this doesn't work, by the way, they have a very short window because they have a bunch of 40-year-olds on their team that are their stars. If this doesn't work, Met fans, will Steve Cohen face the same kind of fate that Peter Angelos faced? The same kind of fate that Artie Moreno faced? Is Steve Cohen one of those guys that is going to push all his money into the table like Wayne Huizenga? Try to win? Wayne did. And then cut bait? I feel bad for Met fans because they are once again buying into something that the rest of the baseball world is kind of chuckling at. The rest of the baseball world is laughing at the New York Mets. You're spending money, but you're not spending it wisely. You're not building from below. You're hurting your younger youth. New York Met fans are once again living in a delusional world. Having Steve Cohen is great. He shows a commitment to winning and a commitment to spending. And you want that in an owner. Absolutely, you want that. But you have to spend smart money. Because my fear is that eventually a businessman is going to want a return on his investment. And if the New York Mets fail again this year, fail again next year, Scherzer and Verlander don't work out as the 1-2 that everybody predicted that DeGrom and Scherzer were going to be, does he keep spending money? Or does he say, you know what? I'm packing up shop. It's time to cut bait on what has not produced a championship. It's all or nothing for New York. It's all or nothing for the New York Mets. And I fear that this is spend money in a bad, drunken sailor type of way. All right, guys, let me know what you think down below. Please comment below. Let me know, hey, it's not an anti-Met thing, guys. I know plenty of people around the country agree with me, but you Met fans, let me know as well. Not do you love to see the spending, but do you feel comfortable 12 years with Carlos Correa? Do you feel comfortable with the pitching staff taking a back step? Do you feel comfortable rolling the dice with your bullpen? Let me know, like and subscribe, and everybody out there, have a very Merry Christmas.